Mrs. Torres.
Thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member. I think a lot of my questions were proposed by both of you. I do want to go back to Ms. Schwartz. You started to quote a bit of Article 7. Are you able to read the entire Article 7 to us here today?
Yes, I am.
Great. I don't have to read this little tiny writing on my iPad.
Article 7. The Cherokee Nation, having already made great progress in civilization and deeming it important that every proper and laudable inducement should be offered to their people to improve their condition, as well as to guard and secure in the most effectual manner the rights guaranteed to them in this treaty, and with a view to illustrate the liberal and enlarged policy of the government of the United States toward the Indians in their removal beyond the territorial limits of the states, it is stipulated that they shall be entitled to a delegate in the House of Representatives of the United States whenever Congress shall make provision for the same.
Provision. When I look up the word provision, its true meaning, it's preparation. It does not say by Congress passing a law. It simply says provision. We need, in order for you to be a member of Congress, a delegate, or a commissioner, you need to have your name on a ledger. You need to have an office. You need to have a budget. You need to have staff. When I read through Article 7, and specifically speaks to improving conditions for the Cherokee Nation, and that Congress is left with its duty to provide room for another representative in the People's House. It does not say that Congress should pass a resolution. There were 20 signers, 10 witnesses. This treaty was very clear in defining the word to improve conditions and preparation, in my opinion. I'm not an attorney, nor do I pretend to be today. But I do believe that the preparation that they were talking about here in the treaty was not for the vote of Congress, because the treaty had already been agreed in consent with the Senate. It's unfortunate that the Senate did not agree to have a delegate in their house, but this is the people's house. So, I think that is where we need to look at how do we honor that. Chief Hoskin, has the federal government improved conditions of the Cherokee Nation? Has the federal government, aside from Article 7, upheld its duty to provide and protect?
Thank you, Congresswoman. If I look at the last 2 centuries, I would say the balance is in favor of the United States having diminished the Cherokee Nation, suppressed the Cherokee Nation, dispossessed us from things that are precious, and put us on the receiving end of things that I think this country now regrets. If you look more recently in history, our relationship with the United States is much improved. I mentioned earlier the period of the 1970s to the present. That was a change in federal Indian policy that restored the civic institutions of the Cherokee Nation and other tribes, put us on a path that, frankly, we would be on before European contact, which is self-determination, charting our own course. And so in that respect, in the last 40, 50 years, we have been on a trajectory of improvement. The United States has a great deal of work to do. I mean, when it comes down to it, the next time the United States fulfills a solid promise to the Cherokee Nation will be the first time it's done it. The next time, and with all due respect to the Congress, the next time the Congress fulfills its trust obligations with respect to funding and other types of resources will be the first time that it's done it. So there is more work to do. In the balance of 2 centuries, the United States is far behind improving conditions. However, we are on a path of progress. What an amazing mark of progress would it be to fulfill a 2-century-old treaty that up to this point, and I want to stress this to the committee, up to this point, if you ask a Cherokee, what does the Treaty of New Echota mean to you? It means pain, indignity, and injustice. We can turn that into justice and a measure of restoration for the Cherokee people and a measure of progress.
In looking at whether the federal government has provided even basic needs, water.
Well, if you look across Indian country, there's still a great deal of deficits. It's true in the Cherokee Nation. I think about in this role what Kim Teehee may do in this Congress as a champion for all of Indian country. And we know that there's parts of Indian country where the circumstances are completely desolate when it comes to basic infrastructure. There are parts of Cherokee Nation where it's lacking. And I think the United States can do a great deal more to close that gap. Having a voice in this Congress will help that. But there is more work to do because.
And I think that is what is key here, is having a voice in this Congress. Representation truly does matter, in my opinion. As I close, I haven't had an opportunity to speak with you before today to thank you about the work that you have done in my district to ensure that the shelter, the migrant shelter for children, tender-age children, was run by you. You received the federal contract on that. And while my weekly visits might have not been as welcome to some, to the Cherokee Nation, they were very welcome. Holding the Cherokee Nation accountable for keeping to the contract, the specific contract of what was called out to protect these children. I was there every week to make sure that you were doing that. And you were there every week at the table ensuring that my questions were answered. So when we look at other shelters and we look at the abuses from forcing children to take narcotics. You can call them medication. I call them drugs. Sexual violence against tender-age children. Physical violence against children. None of that happened under your watch and my watch because we were both diligent. So thank you for meeting the needs of that contract. And I hope that someday the federal government will also meet you eye to eye on this treaty. And I yield back.